Welcome to the interview problem 3. Have you ever written such code that works well in latest environments and in the latest browsers, or at the high level API of Android, or in the latest version of your iOS, but that doesn't work well in the older browsers or in older environments, or at the low level APIs in Android? Have you ever written such code? Did you ever face such kind of problems? Let's pick an example. Suppose if you have noticed, Internet Explorer doesn't support all the methods after ES6 released. These methods are like find, include. These methods are not supported in Internet Explorer. So what is the solution for all of this? How will you get the find and include functionalities in the older browsers? Imagine you have developed an application using React Native or React.js, but that React.js application is working great in latest Chrome version, but that is not working well in Internet Explorer. So there is a way to fix this. There is a way to fix it so that your code can run everywhere in all kind of versions. Here the polyfills comes in the picture. Let's understand the polyfill in detail. What is the use case of polyfills? So what is polyfill? So polyfill is a patch or a backward compatibility for the missing features in the JavaScript for the older versions of browsers and environments. Like it's a way of providing the modern features to the older browsers, which they do not support it. So while implementing polyfills, we need to know following terms, like how we are able to call the find method on an array. We will understand what is constructor, prototype, and this will also understand the what is normalization, length normalization, and what are sparse arrays and holds. So here we will do our implementation. We will come across all of these terms. In the end, we will learn all of these things very clearly. Let's understand first. So first of all, we will initialize an array. That array, let's initialize some elements 1, 2, 3, and 4. First of all, we will see how find method works. Built-in find method. Well, built-in find method in Node.js environment. Let's see its output. Here we will use generally find method receives a callback here. Then let's return the value greater than 2. If you console it, you will get a single output. That is the property of find method, because find method return a single value from the array or the single item which passes the condition at first. If you see its output, let's run it here. Note. So here is the output 3. So what we want to implement the polyfill like find method. So let's write your my find here. And if you run it, you will see that it is throwing an error because my find is not available at the array object, not in its prototype. So we will implement our own my find method that will work like a find method, built-in find method. So here is our code. Let's first you need to check array dot prototype dot my find. First we will check whether my find exists or not in the array dot prototype. Let's understand what is array. Array is a constructor. It's a special method provided by JavaScript which is used to create or initialize the objects in the JavaScript. And prototype exists only on the functional constructors, the constructors or the functions which can be initialized with the new keyword like map. So map is a constructor. Similarly, if you see the number, that is a constructor. So there are two types of constructors. One is built-in constructor like this. There are other kind of constructors also, like we can declare our own constructor like this. Suppose this is a constructor. If you see, let's hello. So now if you call it with the new keyword, let p simple, it's an instance of the person. Now if you save it, now let's comment both. Now if you see node, so here is the output. Now if you observe it carefully, this is the custom constructor and this is the built-in constructor. Map, number, string, weak map, set, promise. There are a lot of built-in constructors are available. All these constructors or all these custom functions which can be initialized with the new keyword. If this if they are initialized with the new keyword, so all these objects and functions will support the prototype property. So array.prototype is an object that only exists on the constructors or functions which which can be initialized with the new keyword. So here my find doesn't exist. If this condition is true, then we will write our own my find method. So what we will do, we will initialize in the array.prototype. Then here we will write our own function. Here we will take a callback. Callback is a function. So we are initializing a function. We are initializing a function to this place, prototype. So if we think about the prototype is an object. It's a place, shareable place. That means if you whatever you add in the prototype, even if you add a method or a property, that method and property will be shareable to all its instances or the arrays. That means the array here we are initializing, that array has the access of these methods my find and properties. This is because of the inheritance. That's why we are able to call array.myfind. It's first of all it's search in the array itself, in the array constructor itself. If it doesn't there, then it checks its prototype. All all the instances of p. Suppose let's see it here. This is p1 and this is p2. There are two instances. If I add any method in that, person dot prototype dot greet. Suppose I'm adding a function and that function is doing nothing, just consoling something. How are you? So I created two instances of this constructor. So these two instances has the access of this method which we added right here in that constructor. This is because here the person dot prototype, that is a place or a shareable place that if you add it something here like method and properties, all its instances will inherit all these properties and methods. Like if you run it, let's see the output here. Just simply call p1 dot create. If you see the output, what will be the output? So here we go. How are you? So if you see it carefully, person dot prototype, it's an object. We added a method there. That method is now accessible to all its instances through the inheritance. So same thing is also happening here. You added a method here my find in the array constructor. So all the arrays, if you declare suppose 3 array, you declare array 1, array 2, array 3, all array will have access of this my find method. Similarly, instead of array, you declare an object or map or set. If you create the map and set, all map and set will have access to this, all of them, all prototype properties, whatever you add there. So now let's do, here is a callback. We are passing this callback as an argument of this method. This is our method. We are passing it as a callback. This is the callback which will we receive here. Now let's check first if your type of callback not a number, not a function. In that case, what will you do? In that case, what will you do? Just return or throw. Use throw with new type error. It's right here. Callback is not a function. Let's make it little. Now, so this is our first check. We need to check whether the callback is a function or not, because user may pass some other stuffs here instead of a callback. That's why we need to check it. If it is not a function, we need to throw the error. Now we also need to check other condition like this is null. If it is null, in that case we also need to throw error, throw new error, type error same. If this is null, in that case, here let's understand about this first. Here this is referring to a context. Context, which context? The context within this function lie in. This means it is referring to the global context. Here the value of this is referring to the global context, because this lies within this function, because this function lies in a global context. That's why it's referring to the global context. Suppose you applied this myFind method on a null or undefined. Suppose array equal to null or undefined, if you are applying a null dot myFind or undefined dot myFind, in that case this is going to be null. That's why we are throwing this error like myFind cannot be applied on null or undefined. Yeah, this is it. So now let's see it. Let's remove it here. Let's make it little down so that you can see it clearly. Here we go. Now let's declare a checked generally and use the object constructor and pass this to this. So this line makes sure that this should be an object. If it is not an object, that object constructor will convert it to this. That object constructor will convert it to the object. Because suppose if it is not an array, it could be something else. It could be a string, or it could be a primitive data type. In that case, what will you do? That's why we need to make sure that this should be an object. That's why we are writing this line. These are test cases generally we need to write. Now let's say take its length of O. O dot length. Here it should be, so this line, you need to understand 2 points about this line. O dot length is a length. This line is checking that O dot length should be an unsigned 32-bit integer. It should be an integer. So what it is doing? It is doing normalization. If the length is less than 0, it will convert it to the 0. If the length is a float or double, so it will normalize it to the unsigned integer or integer. That is what it is doing. Yeah. So let's see what is next. Let's run a for loop. And let's I equal to 0 and I less than length, and here we go I plus plus. Now let's see, let's keep it little down. Now just write a check condition first. If I in object. So let's understand what is that doing. It is just checking that index I should be in the object O. If it is not there, what it will do? It will skip that. Let's see what is the what if it is if the array is like this. What is that? This is a missing element. In that case, index there is no key or index. In that case, this will skip this item that is missing here. The missing element is called whole generally. And if any JavaScript array in the if any element in the JavaScript array is missing, that array is called sparsed array. So this line will skip the holes. Let's see what is the next. Now check if your callback dot call. We'll use the call method, and here we will pass the context, and here we will pass the value, and here we'll pass the index, and here we'll pass the array itself. So if this condition is truthy, if this condition truthy, that means you find out the value. In that case, you just return your object or the index value or the value generally. Now, what if the array is empty? If the array is empty, that is not going to work out. In that case, the loop will not return anything. In that case, we need to return something from outside that is undefined. Now, here we have completed the myFind method. Now let's run it. We'll see its output whether it's working or not. We are calling the array.myFind, and let's write it to here first. We will check for the normal test case. Array.example. Here we go. We got the output 3. Yeah, it's working well. Condition is x greater than 2. MyFind or find built-in find also returns a single value which passes this condition at first. So 3 is passing this condition. That's why it's returning 3 only. Now let's make it a sparse array. Now call it again. Again you are getting 3. Yeah, it is working well. Now pass empty array. What will happen? Yeah, here we go. We got the undefined. Undefined was expected because it is not going inside this. That's why it is returning this one. So let's see what you have understood after all this solution. Now you will understand what are the topics which you have covered here. Let's clarify once again all of this. Array.find. Let's go one by one. First of all, here we will understand everything. Polyfill. As discussed earlier, Polyfill is a patch or backward compatibility for the older versions of browser and environment or low-level APIs. So it fills the gap by replicating newer feature or standards of JavaScript or API in environment that do not support them. Yeah, as I said, APIs. So let's see the example here. There is one example, array.prototype find or include. These are not supported in older browser. If you see older browser of IE 11, Internet Explorer 11, that doesn't support. So solution is the Polyfill. Yeah. Now let's see the other point which you do not know actually. Constructor. What is constructor? So as I told you, constructor is a special method which is used to create or initialize the objects in the JavaScript. There are built-in constructors like object, array, date, set, map. All of these are built-in constructors. I also told you about the custom constructor like this. We can create our own custom constructors. Now let's see the next point here, prototype. What is prototype? Let's make it clear once again. So prototype is an property or an object that exists only on the functional constructors or the functions which can be initialized with the new keyword. If they supports the new keywords, if they can be instantiated with the new keyword, then we can say that this function or a constructor will support the prototype object or property. So let's understand its definition here. You can see the use case of prototype to define methods or properties that should be shared among all instances of a constructor function to achieve inheritance in the JavaScript. Yeah, as I said you earlier. Here, if you observe it carefully, This array is inheriting my find from array.prototype. First, when you execute this line, first what happens? First, array looks for the my find method in the array itself. When it is not there, in that case, then it search in the prototype. Prototype is a shareable place for all of its instances, of all array instances, like this. Now let's see this keyword. Let me clear about this view, this keyword and some characteristics. So dynamic character context. So let's understand the dynamic context here. If you see here, if you cannot see, the value of this changes dynamically. So here you can see the value of this is not set by where the function is defined, but by how it is invoked. Let's understand this here. Suppose here is a test object. Here is a property name Ravi, and here there is a function called cat name something. Here's a regular function as an anonymous function, and here we will do just console.log and this. Now just to simply dot cat name. So what will be the output of this here? If you observe the function, this function lies within this object, So this function is referring to that is this object. So if you see the execution context of the outer scope of this cat name is the object, because this function lies within this object. So if you console it, you will see it will print an object. In that object, you will see two properties. One is name, other is get name. You will see its output. Also, if you console here, let's make a function, other function. Let's first run it. Test object. Let's run it first. So here you can see. So this refers to the context within the function lies in, or where. Yeah. So this is the object with that is printing. Now if you see other scenario, like suppose you have this function, you can console it here. Let's console it here. This. Now if you console it, if you call that, simply just call it. Now if you console it, let's remove this. You see its output here. Okay, we are not calling function. Let's remove this, all of this first here. Let's call the person with directly. Now see, still we are not getting. Okay, now here we go. Okay, we are running the wrong function. Let's run the test. Here we go. So you can see, if you see the scope of this here, it is referring to the context within this function lies in. It lies in the global context. That's why it's printing the global itself. If you observe this one also, the last line, it is printing an object, because this lies within this object. That's why it's referring to this object. So you can see the value of this changes dynamically. It depends on where the function is called. If you can see this line carefully, dynamic value of this is not set by where the function is defined, but by how it is invoked. That is one thing. Default behavior of this is global scope or in regular functions. Okay, let's understand the normalization. So normalization, as I told you, this ensures this statement here. If you observe it here, ensures the length is treated as a 32-bit unsigned integer, converting negative or non-integer value to 0 if necessary, is guarantees proper handling of invalid length properties. In the case of the sparse array, when there is a missing element, the length could be -1. That is the possible case. That's why we need this condition here as a test condition. Other thing, like if you see the sparse array, a sparse array in the JavaScript is an array where some elements are missing, meaning they don't have value or index key in the internal structure of the array. Those are called sparse array. Keep it in the mind. Now let's see the whole final end of the lecture. So a sparse array in JavaScript is an array that has missing elements or holes. This happens when an index in the array is not assigned any value. Let's read it carefully. Accessing a hole. Holes return undefined when accessing, but they are different from an explicitly set undefined value. So you can set undefined here. That is not the hole. You are defining it, you are initializing it explicitly. But here, this is the hole. This is the hole. Here, if you see, if you print its value, it is going to be undefined. That is what it is saying. Suppose this is a sparse array. 1, 3. Console log sparse index 1. Output will be undefined. That is whole generally. And at index 1, it is a whole. So method like map, filter, reduce, and for each skips holes in sparse arrays by default. But methods like join and toString treat holes as if they were undefined. They treat them as undefined. Yep. So here finally is the recap. So you can now watch it carefully, guys. This is our solution. You can also implement the polyfill of map, filter, reduce. You can change this logic for the map. Instead of returning it, you can store it in an array, because map filter returns the array. You can make the changes, necessary changes. It's all possible and easy. This is all for now. You now understood all of these topics. So you have covered all of these topics. Now you are able to understand how we can call array.find. This because of the inheritance. Now you understood the constructors, built-in and custom. Now you understood prototype, this, normalization, sparse array, holes, and everything. This is it for this. This is it for this lecture. If you guys liked this lecture, if you think that I told you something new, and if you think something is added in your brain, so I request you to subscribe my channel.